we go. Hi, everyone. My name is Kareem with Sift. We'll be getting started in just a moment. I hope you enjoy this time with us. We will. Well, it's actually 4 o'clock. Might as well just get started now. All right. So, well, welcome to How to Take Your Recipe to the Market. I appreciate you guys taking the time, spending time with us to learn more on how to take your food idea to the market. Before we present the speaker, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Kareem Hamouda. I work with Sift. I am the small business development specialist there. I help, kind of answer some of the challenging questions that food entrepreneurs face. I myself is a food entrepreneur, and I own my own coffee company. I also help you navigate and kind of guide you, get some resources to you to kind of overcome your goals. For over 25 years, we at Sift have been focused on our mission to drive competitiveness for food processors, manufacturers, and agriculture businesses through a unique blend of business solutions, innovation, and technical expertise. We work with small to medium-sized companies all throughout the state of Ohio. We also manage the Northwest Ohio Cooperative Kitchen down in Bowling Green on Middle Pike. That kitchen is used mostly to produce, your favorite barbecue sauces, confectionery items, frozen foods, and such. We have about 30 to 35 entrepreneurs that use that facility. Just recently, this year, we implemented a new automation initiative there where we introduced the robotics end of things to help alleviate some labor for the entrepreneurs. We also installed some unique brand new walk-in coolers and walk-in freezers to give entrepreneurs better storage for their business. And with that, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Ziad Burkett. Mr. Burkett has a company called Midwest Juicery. They craft 100% organic cold pressed raw juices that are absolutely delicious, low in sugar. On top of that, they work with dietitians and doctors from the Midwest and across the nation to ensure that each recipe and each product that they produce is hitting your healthy goals. He has products in over 800 stores across the Midwest. He's a really good friend of mine, and we grew up with each other. So I'm actually really excited that I have him with me today. Mr. Burkett, go ahead and you can go ahead and share your screen. I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now.
Great. Thank you, Kareem. I appreciate the intro. Not only are we friends from when we were young, but he was also my neighbor, and they had the cool house for Halloween. All the kids were terrified to go by their house. It has this like perfect arch and balcony or entrance that is like already kind of secluded. So then you had the Halloween factor, and it was terrifying. I never personally went. I didn't have the courage for it.
Yeah. I made some people cry a little bit. So
yeah, I was one of those people. All right. Well, again, my name is Ziad Burkett. I am the founder of Midwest Juicery. I'm going to go over some of the things that I've learned in my time starting this company and growing it. A lot of mistakes along the way. Get ready for those, accept them. They're part of the learning process. Instead of everyone going around to introduce themselves, that's kind of not really going to work in this setting, but I would love to learn a little bit about you guys. If you have a second, just send in the webinar chat your name and your company, like a very small spiel about it, and I'll check it out as we're going through the presentation and then try to point out a couple things that might be relevant for each speaker. There is a long presentation. I'm going to try to keep it fun. Hopefully I make you laugh a couple times, maybe be lucky enough to teach you something. And if there's anything that you guys do have a question about, feel free to send it in the chat. and I will keep my eye on it, but there will be a Q&A at the end. So without further ado, I would love to help you guys learn how to take your recipe to market. So a little bit about me. My name is Ziad Burkett, founded Midwest Juicery in May of 2016. I'm a health nut. I'm one of those guys. And I'm also someone that is like everyone's big cheerleader. I misspelled advocate, but I am an advocate for people, always excited to help people just help them with their goals. I don't have a background in any of this. I'm just kind of self-taught, not an expert, but I have a couple little tricks or lots of good healthy recipes and things that can help you enjoy being healthier. That's our mission at Midwest Juicery. And, to the degree that I can do that through the business or just as a friend, I really like doing it. I also started a company this year called Burkett Food Holdings. And it's a company that helps CPG startups, whether they need an investment or some advisory or just provide some consulting on the areas of the business that I am good at, which is more on the sales and the operation side, not so much on the marketing. So as we go through this pitch, we will touch on a lot of topics. These are the juices that I sell. Like Kareem said, he did a great intro, so I'm not even going to go over that. But today's talk is going to be touching on 4 topics: food costing and cost management. Because when he told me this, I kind of took it literally and was like, all right, how to take your recipe to market. So I thought like recipe, food costing, cost management. And that's something that I personally am pretty good at. It's where my background is in. So I'll go into a heavy amount on that, as well as a heavy amount on the sales side, touching a little bit on the production and the marketing. I'm not going to teach you everything today. I'm not even capable of teaching you everything, but we can talk a little bit about everything and then a lot about something. Hopefully it's something that you guys can take into your business, and hopefully we can see your product on the market. So let's get going. So before you even start a company, you have to really ask yourself, why make it? What value does your product bring to people? What problem does it solve? Because essentially all of business is just solving problems for people, whether it's, when we were primitive people and someone was really good at making spears and then they made spears and sold them to people for, fish that they got out of it, or whatever problem you solve. That's kind of what you should think about. And we have a pretty advanced society today. So that problem could just be an emotional problem or a very simple problem or a very niche problem. It's a blessing that we have pretty wealthy society that allows us to serve niche markets. And that's going to be important to understand, because what you will find out is you're not going to be everything to everyone. You have to figure out who you are. You have to figure out what your niche is. And then what's also important is that niche big enough? And you have to define what is big enough. For some of you guys, this is going to be a company that is going to be maybe a side hustle or just a fun hobby. Some of you guys want to make a good business out of this that can support you and your family. And some of you might want to shoot for the stars and have a massive company. And there's nothing wrong with not going for that. It is exhausting. I do that. I'm shooting for the stars. And while it is what I want, it does come at a massive emotional toll. That's kind of what entrepreneurship is about. It's exhausting, but if it's for you, it's worth it. It is worth it for me. I love it. I can't see myself doing anything else, even amidst the chaos. I think Elon Musk's quote is, entrepreneurship is like chewing on glass while staring into the abyss. It hurts and you don't know where you're going in the process, but some people like it. I'm one of those people, and hopefully you guys are too, and hopefully it's something you enjoy. But again, no shame if it's not for everybody. So you have your recipe. Now, the way I started the business was I can make a product, but can I make a product profitable? And it doesn't have to be today. It can be tomorrow. When we first started making our juice, we made no money. Like, our cost to make it was more than what we sold it for, but we knew what we had to sell it for. So we did that and then kind of worked backwards. And this is where I'm going to help you guys start. So the most important thing, what I found on the food side when making a recipe, is to understand your cost of making the actual product. And there's two measurements you need to understand. And unit of measure is UOM is a term, if you guys aren't familiar, it's a term that basically implies like the unit that you use something in, the way you measure something. So in our world, we buy things from suppliers in a certain quantity, but then we use them in a certain quantity. And I'll get into more detail about that on the next slide, but you have to have you have to have a system to manage all of that. And you have to be able to manage it over time because food prices change regularly. And obviously we have some inflation going on, so that can change in a not positive way pretty regularly too. So you have to be able to stay on top of that. And then you need to find suppliers and find more than one of each. And we'll go over why that's important in a minute. But product sourcing is the first thing. So you're going to get your recipe, but for not even before you build out your costing, you have to find where you're going to buy these things at. So you need to find suppliers who have what you need. You have to ensure their quality is to your standard, and you have to keep an eye on that because just like you can switch from a supplier, so do they. And as that changes, you have to make sure that it still is to your standard. So you have to always continuously monitor the quality of the product that's coming in. In my world, that's super important. And I'll explain more of that in some later slides, but I juice stuff. So when someone says, hey, I have some carrots that's, you're paying $1 and I'm going to sell them to you for 75 cents. I'm like, great, but are they juicy? Because if they're cheaper, it doesn't matter if they don't get the same amount of juice out. So kind of have to always monitor quality. Everyone has different problems. If you buy cinnamon or cayenne, some cayenne is stronger. And so just keeping an eye on that is really important. Always factor in the freight when you are getting something in. That should definitely be something you keep an eye on. Some suppliers offer some, freight options. And that's why I encourage smaller businesses to start with a local distributor if that's an option, because they're not going to charge you shipping. They allow you to order a small amount at a time, and they'll actually have a lot of things that you might need. And then don't be afraid to negotiate. I mean, whenever people offer a product, they're offering you the price that they would love, but not the one that they're okay with. Don't be afraid to negotiate. Always ask people what their price is first. Don't tell them what you want to pay, and then try to negotiate from there. Sell them on your long-term potential, your partnership, and your growth. Especially if you're trying to become a really big company, then you can promise that to them. And you don't have to hit it, but to the degree that you hit those things, they'll believe you more and they'll buy in more to what you do. And hopefully you can get some better pricing, because keeping the cost down is essential in a food business. So unit of measure. There are 2 units of measure to understand. Like I said, there is the procurement, or the unit that you buy it in. This is the measurement your supplier sells them to you. Could be kilograms, pounds, gallons, whatever. That's how you buy it. And then you need to understand the unit of measure when you sell it, or in our case, when you use it. So you may buy, let's say you make cookies. You may buy, a 50-pound bag of flour, but then your recipe is by the cup. So you have to have that conversion available, and having that is really important because in the food industry, it's not always the same. A cup of flour, a pound of flour has a different number of cups than a pound of sugar, for example. So you have to have some kind of system to allow for that. And you have to do the math. Don't be afraid to do the math. It is necessary. It's super important in our business because we're not providing a service to people where we, help them sell something, or no, we sell a product that is very cost heavy. And in the food industry, I mean, it's all about the numbers. So make sure you understand your numbers. Don't assume conversions ever. For example, we order maple syrup in our lemonade, and you would think 16 ounces for a pound, but that's not correct because maple syrup is dense. So you have to make sure that you get all of those measurements correct to properly understand what your food cost is. This is a spreadsheet I kind of put together for you guys. It can be overwhelming, but you have to be good at spreadsheets if you want good data. It's just the easiest and most consistent way to do these things. So I'm going to actually go through this slide in some detail to help you guys understand the way I do it. Obviously, you don't have to do it this way, but this is what has worked for me. So I make juice. So we have some of our ingredients right here. And the first thing is the buy unit of measure. So what's the way you buy it? Most of the stuff we buy by the pound, but some items we buy actually pre-juiced. Lemons is an example. Most people in the juice industry don't juice citrus. It's very hard to do. So you buy pre-juiced lemons that you pour in. So we buy that by the 5-pound gallon. So you have your unit of measure right here, and then you have your case size. Like I said, this is the increment that you buy it in based off the unit of measure. So when we buy apples, we have to buy them by the 800-pound bin. When we buy carrots, we have to buy them by the 25-pound bag. And that's something you have to have in there. And then what's your vendor charging you for that? This is the cost you pay for that case, including freight. Make sure that freight is included in there so that you have a true landed cost. Then what is the unit of measure you use it in? For us, it's very easy. We use an ounce of juice. And in the case of, again, going back to cookies, you may be using cups of flour and tablespoons of vanilla extract or butter or whatever that is, but you have to have that other conversion so that you know what you're using it in. And then you need the conversion of the way you buy it to the way you use it. So again, the juice is a little complicated example because you don't get all of the stuff. So in the case of flour, let's just say, 4 cups make a pound. So you buy it by the pound, you'd put 4 as your conversion so that you know how much a cup costs you because you use it by the cup. Juice is a really weird one. We juice a pound, 16 ounces, but in the case of apples, we get 10.5 ounces. In the case of beets and carrots, you get like 7, so that you know what your cost per ounce is. You need to know what your cost is based off of based off the way you use it. So because everything is an ounce, in my world, I need to know what the cost of an ounce is. The math is down here, by the way, for you guys. This is case cost. It's divided by the case size times the conversion. So in the first apple case, it would be $240 is what we pay for the case, and you divide that by the conversion times the case. It's a little complicated. If anyone has any questions, shoot that in the chat, but that's essentially how you get to your cost per unit. And then you get your cost for the product you sell. So in the case of our juice number 1, it uses 2 ounces of beets. We know it costs us 10 cents per ounce. So that's 20, the carrots, the cucumbers, the ginger, and the lemon, and so forth. And then it tells you what your cost is. Again, a lot of this is making sure you understand the logic of the cost structure. And this is different for everybody, but making sure you know what your cost structure is. And then ideally having a system that can manage that automatically. Excel is an amazing one for it. There are also food softwares out there. They can be kind of expensive. Some of them have like a high monthly fee. If you do want help with this is one of the services that I provide for businesses. So my contact information will be at the end, but getting this down is super important because not only does it allow you to ensure you have a profitable business, but it also is a system you can use to kind of guess in the future how much it's going to cost you to make it. So you'll understand, oh, if I get a supplier of beets and they get my costs down from $18.75 to $10, if you have an automated system, you just change that and it'll spit out your new costs. And that's a good thing, obviously, but sometimes that comes at a cost of like, you have to buy a lot of inventory. So you can do some math and make some best guesses if sometimes buying something in bulk will drive down your costs, and you just got to figure out like, is 5 cents worth it, for a $2,000 investment? For some businesses it is, and some businesses it's not, but that's something that you'll figure out. But the other thing to consider is how long your ingredients last, because in our world, it's food, so not everything lasts a long time. In my case, I have parsley and kale. It's like 2 weeks. So I always order exactly what I need, and I make my orders so that there's nothing left over. If you have a product that lasts forever, this is not a problem for you. But if you have a product that is not a long lasting, you want to make sure that you're ordering what you need, but also making sure your production is also going to optimize, for example, your case size. So in my case, the one perfect example would be the lemon juices are frozen. So we freeze the lemon juice so it lasts a long time. If you always want to make, ideally you always want to make a recipe that's going to use 5 full gallons. Try not to make batches that are be 3 gallons and then you have to throw the rest of it out because it's not going to last. This is where some of that go back to that sourcing requires, because sure, you might have a supplier that has a better price for 5 gallons, but if you're throwing out 2 of the 5, then your cost is almost double and then it's not worth it. So this is all a discovery process, but really making sure you have numbers is going to allow you to get a better understanding and figure out where your opportunities are to drive down your cost and avoid waste, because not only is waste not good for your bottom line, it's just not good to waste stuff. I see we got some questions, so I'm going to pause here for a second and see what we got. All right, cool. Just got some updates on you guys, so thank you.
Yeah, Ziad, we had a technical difficulty while you were talking. Our chat was disabled, but now it's solved. So we got that squared away. So some people were using the Q&A and now they're using the chat, which is fine. So for everybody, the chat is all chats are available now. So we apologize for the inconvenience for anyone.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Tori, Lindsay, and Anonymous, good name, for sharing your company bio, almond butter. That looks good. I like a good almond butter. Excuse my French, but there's a good one called Bitchin'. So I'd love to see more about how yours compares. All right, moving on. So, whoops. So now who's gonna make it? This is a tough one because there's benefits to making it yourself and there's benefits to using a third-party co-packer. It's hard. This is a really hard part of it because co-packers are great, but they have some downsides. Making it in-house is great because you can control some of the quality, but it has its own downside. So we're going to get into some of this, and please feel free to throw out any questions that you might have or any thoughts. So making it in-house. This is a great option, especially when you're first getting started. It allows you to just make as much as you need. Co-packers will have sometimes a high minimum, and that's really not ideal for businesses that have a short shelf life. Very much the case for food, very much the case for juice. Low R&D costs. A lot of co-packers will charge you quite a bit of money to test stuff out, whereas if you're just making it in your kitchen, you can just, it's just your time. Excuse me. Flexibility to try new products. This is a good one. Again, co-packers tend to have not only a high production minimum, but also an item minimum. So if you want to test out a new product and put it in your best performing store to get customer feedback, it's a good opportunity to try small batch products. And then quality control. No one's going to make your product like you are, and that's just a really good way to ensure the quality as you start to grow. Now, every brand in the world starts to kill quality a little bit as they grow because there's so much efficiencies in making small changes. The brands that last are the ones that don't make too many and really have an awesome product, even despite their growth. The downsides of making it in-house. You're probably going to cost you a lot per unit. Unless you have a massive facility, you're not going to have the machinery, you're not going to have the labor, you're not going to have the workflow that's going to allow you to drive your costs down, but that's really not priority number one. When you have if you have a premium product and you're a small business, people are willing to pay a lot in the beginning. So it's okay if your unit cost is high. It's okay if your price is expensive. It's almost a good, not a good thing, but it's not necessarily a bad thing if you have a high price, because whenever there's a new product, whenever there's a trendy product on the market, only people that are early adopters are going to buy it anyways. So you can kind of get that feedback, and then as you grow, you can drive your costs down. So don't sweat the high unit cost too much in the beginning, especially if you're starting small. I mean, you're going to lose money in the beginning. Almost everyone loses money in the beginning. So this is not necessarily a big problem. Also, big capital investment for a facility or equipment can be the case if you make it in-house, not necessarily depending on your product, but it can. In my case, very much so, because you have to have a refrigerated warehouse when you make juice. So not ideal. So I actually had a co-packer from day one, and I was lucky enough to find one that didn't have crazy minimums. It's very demanding of your time. You will be spending a lot of time making the product, which could be better used elsewhere. It's obviously hard to scale unless you have that massive capital investment. You can make something out of your kitchen, but as your business starts to grow, you will need to make more, and that's really hard to scale. And then finding labor. I mean, it's hard to hire, excuse me, it's hard to hire people these days. It's hard to find work. Everyone knows there's kind of a labor shortage right now. So that's also a problem of making something in-house, especially if you're a small business and don't have the efficiencies or the capital to allow for really efficient employees who can make a good wage. Let me see what we got in the chat before I move on. Ooh, good chocolate. I need to try some of these. All right, good. These all sound like really good products. Make sure you guys send me your info after this so I can buy some of your stuff because I like good, healthy food. Or just quality. It doesn't have to be healthy. All right, so Copackers. Copackers are great in some ways. Usually they're going to run a lot of volume, and also they're going to run a lot of total volume out of the facility. They're going to make products for you and other people, so your unit cost could actually be pretty good, in some cases pretty great. Now, I will say, keep in mind, this is not always the case. There are some businesses where it is pretty simple product to make, and making it in-house is actually not that costly. But again, generally, it's almost always easier to, if not use a co-packer, just have a facility that has big equipment to run it efficiently. Again, a co-packer is going to have little to no capital investment. If you need some machinery that is specific to your product, some co-packers will do it if you buy it, or some will do it if you commit to a certain number of volume to kind of pay for the product. Using a co-packer frees up your time to sell your product, which is the most important thing as an entrepreneur. You need to sell your product. We'll get into that later, but by not spending, hours and hours making your product, especially if you have a product that doesn't last long, you can spend more time out in the market, getting your name out and selling your product. They also tend to have the good ones will have lots of quality and safety and cleanliness standards. So you can ensure that, your product will be good, and there's also liability that they're generally accountable for any mistakes. So the risk can be kind of low with the co-packer. The downsides is they can have a high order size. So either you need to find someone who will be patient, or you just need to have enough volume to hit their minimums. They're not always strict in following your process, but also they might not even be willing to make it the way you make it. And this is really, really important. The way your product, what makes it awesome, might be something that is the way you make it, and not everyone makes it the way you make it. So an example, in the juice industry, there's two ways to make juice. You can either juice each ingredient and then measure in exactly what you need of each one to make your final product. Or you can do the math on how much produce you need to make the number of juices you need, and you can just run it through the machine altogether. There are pluses and minuses to both. The pluses of, the higher quality way is the first way is that it's more accurate. It's consistently always going to be exactly what you need. But the downside is that it's more expensive because it's more labor intensive. You have to juice each ingredient and then mix and pour, and then you probably will have some waste of some ingredients because in our world, you're not always going to get the 10.5 out of apple. You might get 10.75, and then you wasted the extra if you want to keep it perfect. Or you might juice 10 flat, and then now you don't have enough apple, so all the extras are going to be wasted. So keep that in mind about the way you make it. Have that long conversation with your co-packer. If you go that route, go there. Trust me. Go there and make sure they're doing it the way that you need them to. And you don't have to be there all the time, but in the beginning and regularly check in to make sure that they are following the process that they committed to with you, and make sure that they document it and share it with you. All right, I'm going to stop there real quick. Does anybody have any questions about anything I've said so far? That's more on the operation side, talking about production and about the food costing. I'm going to stop for just like 1 minute. I'm going to read some of the chat we got in here, but if anyone has any questions, wherever that thing went, I would love to answer them. Let's see. Oh man, we got a lot of people back in. Jerry, thank you. Would love to hear more about your pasta sauces. My wife's making pasta today, so would love to get some of that and make her life a little bit easier. See, Pamela, sweets already sold. Ooh, creamy honey already on that. And then no bake cookies. My favorite dessert in the whole world is a chocolate chip cookie. So if it is as good as you promise, I promise you I will be a regular customer.
I also want to mention recording of this webinar today will be provided to you after the event. So I did get a question about that. So just want to let
All
everybody
right, great. All right, let's move on. So you have your costs now, you have your suppliers, great. Time to sell. So you need to understand who your customer is, and you are going to have a lot of different customers. There's going to be the person who buys and uses your product, the consumer. It's so important to understand them because they drive all of the decisions for everyone in the supply chain and the food chain management. But they're not your only customer. They have different needs. When you sell to customers, that's great. You can sell them on your story. You can sell them on your value proposition and what makes your product different. But there are other kinds of customers. There is the retailer, the infamous, not the worst person in our industry, but they are, the retailers are great, but they're tough. So you have to understand, what do they care about? And they care about a lot of things, but you have to kind of get an idea what retailers care about, but then just ask them. Like, the most important thing when you do a pitch to a customer is ask them what's trending in your category. What could be better? What do you guys need to be more successful? And then you can tailor your pitch to that. But obviously, they want to make money, just like we all do. We all want to sell it and make an awesome product, but we have to make some money in the process. So you have to understand what their margin requirements are. And a key thing in our industry is we use the word margin, not markup. Margin is profit divided by the sell price. It's really important because you're going to hear percentages a lot in our industry. And so markup is like one. So let's say, for example, someone wants a 35% markup and your cost is $1. If when they say markup, it's $1 times 1.35, but that's different than margin because they're making 35%. But this way, that markup is 35%, but this is the number that they care about, which is the 35 cents divided by $1.35, which is actually less than 35%. I don't remember the math off the top of my head, but you want to make sure that this is the calculation you're doing when retailers or distributors or anyone asks you, the margin target. They want to offer new things. They want to offer products that, share their core values, and, they want to offer local products as well. They hate having an empty shelf. It is like it's just wasted opportunity for sales. If you think about a grocery store, they're basically, in theory, renting you shelf space. They're trying to make a certain amount of profit for every square footage. And it's not going to be the same throughout the store. Some products are going to turn really fast and some are going to turn slow, but they all have a strategic decision. But the most important thing is it has to be there when the customer walks in. They want it to be easy. You probably manage anywhere from 1 to 5 to maybe even 20 products, which probably feels like hell. They manage thousands of products. So they don't want to spend too much time ordering any one product. It has to be easy to order. It has to be easy to deliver, and make sure that you understand what their requirements are to order and deliver. Now, when you have a distributor, a lot of that is automated because you have one customer, and we'll get about that later. But generally, when you start, you're knocking on the doors of a couple local businesses, and you have to understand what's going to be easy for them. Because if it's not easy or if it's painful, they will probably kick you out because they have to manage what comes in the door consistently so that it's never brought in and they're not paying for it, or they're paying for it twice and all that. They also want companies, and this is more on the grocery store side, but they want companies that are going to support their marketing efforts. They want you to be partaking in their ads. They want you to provide social media content, signage. If they have events, they want you to be there. And most importantly, they want demos. Demos are everything in our industry. They're great. They're the best and the worst thing about our industry. And basically the reason for that is that there's nobody that's ever going to sell your product better than you. There's nobody that's going to tell the story better than you. And people love meeting small business owners, and they get to try the product. The downside is they are not scalable. Unless you can get multiple people that are part of your team to do demos and do them well, nobody's going to sell the product as well as you. And they're essential in the beginning, but that success that you have with the demos, you have to figure out how to best duplicate that as you grow. It's there's nothing that's going to come close. But a good thing about the demos is you do get to get instant feedback for customers, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But doing demos are essential for sales. I mean, they just sell the product better. Getting your name out there, hearing your story, and getting customer feedback. Now, if you ever get fortunate enough to meet with a large retailer like a Kroger or Meijer or Whole Foods or Costco or any of those people, you have to bring data. They want data. They want to see where the market is going, what makes your product unique, and the trends that, consumers really want to see with a product. Let's see here, distributors. Now, these are the worst people in our industry. If anyone distributors are in this meeting, I'm sorry, I don't love you, but I'm sorry. So distributors are the people that deliver the product to the retailers. Obviously, that's not the case if you're just delivering to a local business. You can also deliver to many businesses direct if they're open to that and your system allows for it. Kind of hard for us because we have refrigerated juice. So we do deliver directly to some customers, but it's only customers that are within 2 days UPS ground because it's less expensive. It can't last in transit more than 2 days because it has to stay cold. And it's too expensive to ship it to California because then we'd have to charge like a stupid amount of money. So distributors are going to be who can deliver your product. They're easy to work with in that you have one customer. If you find a good distributor with a good sales force, and they can really push your product really well, but some of them can be tough. But here's what they care about. They want you to deliver consistently on time. Just like the grocery store, they don't want to have an empty shelf. In the distributor's case, they don't want to not have product available because most of them work on a pretty tight margin, so they're working on volume and they can't have missed deliveries. Margin requirements, again, you have to understand how much money that they want to make, and we're going to go through the math of this in a little bit, but it's going to vary by customer, it's going to vary by distributor. The good thing is that the bigger customers tend to get a better price. They order more from the distributor, so they get a lower price, and that's part of the reason why Meijer is going to have less expensive stuff than your local health food store that doesn't order as much. They get a better price from the distributor because it's more efficient to deliver it. And it's a good thing because then in some cases your product can be a lower price for customers to buy, and in some case in an area where customers are not used to paying as much. You also need to understand the fees. There are going to be a lot of fees. There are fees, and then there's more fees, and there's more fees that you didn't think about, and the ones that they didn't tell you about are the ones that you missed. So be prepared. When we go through the math in a little bit, it's always good to factor in a little bit of extra margin to figure out to be safe for these fees. And there's multiple kinds of fees. There are product-specific fees that apply to the product itself, like bill back fees. So if you do promos with the grocery store, and the distributor might charge you a fee to kind of manage the facilitation of that. And then there's actual promo fees, when you give discounts so that the product is on sale in the grocery store. But then there's also fees that are not product specific that should not be part of your item costing. That's going to be catalogs, trade shows, things that are a flat number, because that flat number is not something you factor in because it doesn't change as you grow or shrink. So if there's grocery stores that require you to be in their catalog 4 times a year, let's say it's $1,000, you don't want to put that into the cost of your item because it skews it based off volume. So $4,000 a year is not a big deal if you're selling them, let's say $100,000 a year in product, but it's a lot if you're selling them, $10,000. So you want to put some of the fees into the marketing cost, not in your item cost. More math. We are going to go through the math of how the sales work in our industry, how the grocery stores want to look at margin, and how you want to do the math to make sure that you are profitable, you're making a good margin, everyone's making good money along the way, and everyone is happy. Because I used to, depending on the customer, and if people are greedy, I do negotiate quite a bit, but with your customers, generally speaking, if they make a lot of money, they're going to be really happy. So yes, you want to, be able to sell high and have them, sell it for a good price. But if it's too much and they're not making enough money, you're not a priority. If they sell a lot of your product and they make a lot of money, you're not going anywhere, and you're going to be stuck with them in a good way for a very long time. So we're going to do some math. so that you guys have an understanding of making sure your costing along the supply chain is correct. So let's say you have an item that costs you $1.10, and make sure delivery is factored into this. Especially in the beginning, you're going to be delivering to a store, and let's say you pay a guy $100 to make you 10 deliveries, so it's $10 a delivery, and they take whatever math that comes out to 10 cents. So you want to make sure you have the delivery factored into that. So you have your price, and you have to figure out how much profit margin do you want to make. In our industry, it varies depending. If you make it in-house, in theory, that's cheaper, and you have a higher margin to cover the rent you pay and the electricity and all of these fees. If you have a co-packer, then your margin tends to be a little bit lower because you don't have the overhead that you need to fund. So let's just use a round number, about 40%. That's generally the number in our industry, but it's not required. Some people make way more. Some people are profitable at less. Every business is different, but we're going to use 40% to start. So when you want to figure out margin, the calculation for margin is your cost divided by 1 minus your margin target. So in this case, it's $1.10 divided by 1 minus 40, which it comes out to $1.83. This is the same formula all the time for margin, but I'm going to show you how you start here and you get to a retail price. One thing to keep in mind is the way I look at it is my business is very end consumer focused. So when I first started this business, I thought, what's the product I want to make? How much do I want it to sell for in the grocery stores? And can I make the numbers work along the way and make everyone happy and profitable along the way? So more math. The next is the distributor. Some distributors that are really efficient and they sell to huge stores can be as low as 8% margin, and some are as much as 30%. Do not forget about the fees, but we're just going to throw a round number out there of 20% all in. So again, your price divided by 1 minus the distributor margin would be $1.83 is what you sell it for. And the distributor, did I do that right? Yeah, you sell it for $1.80. Wait, I think I messed this up. Okay, I did mess this up. I had a feeling about this. So 1 second. When I was looking at the math earlier, I was like, this doesn't seem right, but I can't figure out what I did wrong. I think I figured it out here. So your price that you sell to the distributor for is $1.83. Now, how much does the distributor want to make? Oh, no, I had it right. Sorry, guys. Entrepreneurship life kind of kills me sometimes. Okay, no, I had it right. Sorry, guys and ladies. Let me go back. All right, so we're back. So your price that you sell it for is $1.83. The distributor wants to make 20%. So again, your price of $1.83 divided by 1 minus 20 comes out to $2.29. That's what the distributor is going to sell it for. And then you have your retailer. Again, very substantially. Some retailers, depending on the department, is a big one too, can be as low as like 30%. That's generally grocery and dairy are 30, 35%, sometimes 40. But then other departments like produce or deli can be 45, 50, even as much as 55%. Do not be afraid to negotiate. I did mention earlier that you want your customers to make money, but at the end of the day, these customers take dollars to the bank, not margin. Some of these people they're crazy married to this, like we have to make 40%, but you don't have to make 40%. You think you have to make 40% based off of other factors, like how much they expect to throw out or other factors. So you can understand what their other costs might be. You can possibly negotiate these things. Also, if you have a higher priced item, that does allow for a lower margin if you don't have shrink, because they're making more per unit. So don't be afraid to negotiate. I have a little baby example down here, but let's say they want to make 40%. So the distributor, again, $2.29 the distributor sells it for, divided by 1 minus 40% comes out to $3.82. You can put in there an SRP of $3.79. It's like 39%, 39 point some percent. Some people will take it literally and put 382, but a lot of people will be open to SRPs. Even if they say 40% and you put something like 349, a lot of the people will be okay with it because sometimes they have a personal philosophy of we like being these numbers kind of thing. So always offer an SRP. If you can also provide data of how much better a product sells at a certain price, that's always going to help. Data is wonderful. All right, what else we got? Any talks? Nope. All right. This is the summary of the math, and then we're done with math, I promise, guys. So just a summary, your cost is $1.10 to make a product. You want to make 40%. So you sell it to the distributor for $1.83. The distributor sells it because they want to make 20%. So they sell it for $2.29, and then the retailer wants to make 40%, $3.81. So you can understand how your cost ends up in the grocery store industry. It's generally it's a little bit more than triple is pretty much the norm. As you can see here, triple would be $3.30. So this is like 3.5 times as much. If I think about my juice cost, it's about the same thing. But again, these are just suggestions. Same thing for you. Not only does retailers take money to the bank, not percentages, so do you. So do not be afraid to give better pricing to larger customers. Don't give the farm away. Always hold your own ground. But if a bigger customer wants a better margin and it might drop your margin average from 40% to 35, but look at the total dollars you make at the end of the day. And don't forget how large volume can help drive down your costs by bigger production runs with your co-packers, buying ingredients in better quantities, and the freight of getting it somewhere more efficiently. For example, one of my trucking companies, when we ship one pallet, it costs something like $300, but when we ship two, it's like $450. So there's a lot of efficiencies throughout. Again, back to that point earlier, don't be afraid to negotiate so that you can continuously drive down your costs, because as I mentioned in the beginning, you might not be very profitable or profitable at all in the beginning, but if you can see a path to getting there, also by just asking your suppliers, like, what's your best price and how much do I need to order to get there, you can at least have line of sight to profitability. This may not be breaking news to many of you, but it's crazy to us. Most food companies are not profitable at all for a while. So if you have some capital raise, or if this is a side hustle and you don't need to make money in the beginning, don't feel like you have to make money from day one. You should figure out how to make money as quickly as possible, but think about the long term. All right, so I'm not going to touch too much on marketing because frankly, I'm not good at it. My expertise is definitely on the sales and operations side. But here's just a little bit of what I have. Find creative people to do your marketing. If that's not you, then find someone, because in today's world where there's so much information, every product is promoted on Instagram and Facebook and Google and TV and radio. People are so inundated with ads that it's overwhelming. So it's okay if you're not good at something. I'm not good at it. I am the worst social media person on earth. So I have somebody manage my social media. And as our business has grown and we have more marketing needs, I've been able, when I've been able to afford it, hire marketing agencies that can help with that, because I'm not good at it. It's really important for your business. And then I can focus on the other areas that I am good at and get more accounts. In your local area though, when you're first starting, you are your marketing. So even if you're not a good marketer, like I'm not, if you can at least sell your product, and when you start, all of your marketing and all of your sales is going to be word of mouth for the most part. It's going to be doing events, TV and radio. Love getting local businesses on for free, doing demos at local stores or everything. So you are a lot of your marketing in the beginning, but shortly after that, you have to have successful marketing, and you have to have a plan too, because once you are at your limit of doing demos and going to events and pushing your product, you have to find out what's going to scale as you are at capacity. So outside of your home where you have capacity, this is where expertise and experience comes in. So find out what works, find out what customers want, always listen to your customers, and then figure out what's going to scale. Not everything is going to. Demos don't scale. Going to farmers markets doesn't scale. I mean, if you're trying to grow your business into something big, farmers markets is a great way to get like people to kind of know your story and get hooked and hopefully buy your product elsewhere. But again, it's not scalable. Make it easy for your partners to use your content. When you have good marketing material, send it out to all your customers and they will put it on their social media, because just like you, they run out of things to talk about on social media. So when you can provide them with stuff, it's a great opportunity to get your name out there. Some cases for free, but in a lot of cases, depending on if it's a bigger store, when they have, 4, 5, 10, 50, 100 stores, they make you pay for it. It's a source of revenue for them. But for some places, if they can get you good data to show that it's worth it, it is worth it. It's not always worth it for everyone. And some of that's a discovery process. Marketing in our industry is very hard to get an ROI on because there's so many factors. But if they can give you data on success, you can at least try it. If it works, run with it. If it doesn't, drop it and try something else. It's hard to figure out what works in marketing, but if you have people that have expertise and experience, it's essential. But yeah, do not be afraid to get help in any area of your business, not just marketing. This is just, this is what hits home for me because I'm not a good marketer, but in any area, if you're not good at sales, then get a sales agency. If you're not good at accounting or cost management, find someone that can help you with that. So this is the last slide, I think. Things I wish I knew when I started. This is more of like the inspirational stuff, but the other stuff is great, but this is more of what's gonna stick with you. Don't overcommit. Don't promise the world to anybody, because they're not even gonna deliver on what they commit to. If they have these lofty goals. So don't feel like you have to overcommit. Don't be ashamed to say, I have a long lead time. Don't be ashamed to say that, I can get you demos, once every 3 months. Don't tell them once a month and not show up. Be confident in your product, commit to something that's reasonable, and then sustain that, because then they know they can come back to you for things. And this is the case with suppliers. This is the case with customers. This is the case with agencies. Don't overcommit. Promote early and often, get your name known. And like I said, find a marketing plan that works in your home, and then figure out how you can scale that to the future with larger retailers. Going to take longer than you think. Everything takes longer than you think. Everybody is slow, but I will tell you, you have to be persistent. I can't tell you how many people have called me persistent, and I just tell them, like, if you were accountable, I wouldn't have to be persistent. Never, ever let anyone's laziness or just bad practices at work dictate the success of your business. If you have to ask for a manager, ask for a manager. If you have to find a new supplier, find a new supplier. But it's going to take a while, but don't let other people's slowness or laziness or incompetence dictate your success. Make everything sustainable and scalable. It's not always going to be, but figure out what works and then how you can scale that. You may have a great supplier of whatever ingredient, but they have a limit on how many they can get you. Well, then you need to find something that's going to work instead of that or in place of that. At Midwest Juicery, we love sourcing local product, but cucumbers don't grow in the winter. So we have backup suppliers that allow us to source locally in season, and then California when it's always sunny and year round. This is the same thing with sales efforts, same thing with marketing efforts. Figure out what works and figure out what you can scale. And the most important thing is to listen. Listen to your retailers, listen to your distributors, and most importantly, listen to your end consumers. If they're going to give you feedback that you're going to hate, there's going to be assholes, excuse my French. Ignore those people. If there's people that are just disrespectful, don't let them get you down. There's those grouchy people, and they got their own problems. Don't worry about them. When people have feedback, even if it's harsh, but if they have feedback, listen to it. I have an expensive juice. We have a single serving organic juice at $7. It's a shock for people. And that's okay, because we're not everything for everyone. People tell us all the time, a naked's $3. Why shouldn't I just buy that? And, to some degree, if they're asking in good faith, answer them. But if they're not, then just accept that those are not your people, because you're not going to be everything for everyone. But when you hear that feedback, if it's good faith feedback, or if it's not, but it's still constructive feedback, let it sink in, and to the degree that you can, flex. We had a green juice with no apples in it. I'm sorry, we had a green juice that had some apples in it. Customers kept telling us, do you have anything that's just straight greens? So eventually we made one, and it became our bestseller basically immediately. that was a huge source of revenue for us that we never even thought about. But when you listen to your customers, you have opportunity. So listen to them and listen close to the retailers, because they're harsh people. So when they say something, make sure you execute on it, because they will come back to you with it, whether it's you have to deliver on time or blah, 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 blah. I think that's it. So I talk really fast. I'm sorry if that was hard to grasp. If anybody has any questions, any feedback, anything they want to talk about, please feel free. Kareem, I'm going to ask you, how are they going to send it? Is this a chat thing, or can we allow them to talk? And
so there is a Q&A chat that they can just send their questions, and then we can answer them live. I'll go ahead with my first question. So one of the things you talked about, costs. So when you have, let's say the retailer has your product more expensive, do you recommend having the same price that what your retailer sells, or should you be cheaper than the retailer? Because I've heard different from business owners. I've heard different arguments, like saying like retailers are more of your advertising for you, and then they try to like, it's another revenue stream to be cheaper than the retailer. Some people like to be more consistent on price.
So you never want to undercut your retailers, because then they'll just drop you. Like, what people look at that all the time, especially the independents. The larger ones tend not to care too much, but it just depends. First of all, what's your goal? Do you want to be in retail, or do you want to sell online or direct to consumer? So first you have to figure out what your actual objective is. My personal is, I don't undercut my retailers unless customers order in a lot. And I don't mean they actually undercut them, but for example, you can get our product for a little bit less than what it costs in the grocery store if you order a big quantity. So let's just say, for example, our juice is $7 at the store. If you order a 30 pack, you can get it for, let's say, $6.50 delivered to your door. Well, it's 50 cents less. So it's not really that much that the retailer is going to necessarily care about, but they also have to order 30. So my suggestion is not to undercut them, but if you do, it should be in a way that is logical, meaning some kind of significant quantity. But generally speaking, if people are coming to your website to buy your product, they're not going to buy one. They have to buy it in bigger quantity. And if they're coming to you, that means that they really want it. So they're probably going to buy it, not regardless of the price, but a little difference in the price almost doesn't matter. Whether, because we're in food, so most foods are single serving, they're going to be within $1 or so. Generally speaking, it's not necessarily an issue.
Gotcha. I do want to comment. You talked about having your own facility compared to a co-packer. There is that compromise between there, as using a cooperative kitchen. So cooperative kitchens are usually places where you can produce the food. Each cooperative kitchen has their own parameters on what they can be produced in there, but it's a good opportunity for you to at least try selling your product, and go from there to get a little bit of cash flow.
Yeah, it really is, because one of the drawbacks that was on that slide was the capital investment. Well, if you can get a cooperative kitchen, then you're just paying, an hourly or a per site fee that allows you to get all that equipment, but without having to drop the cash.
Gotcha. I did get a question that came in. So this attendee is interested in licensing the recipe compared to making it versus making it itself. Can't legally sell dairy products or butter in that person's case. It's made in a home kitchen. Do you have any suggestions regarding licensing?
So I don't. I've never experienced that. The closest thing that we've done on our end is private labeling, but that is still you keeping the recipe. Honestly, you need to talk to a lawyer about that. It's a great way, especially if you can license to someone big. It's an amazing way to make really good money with basically no work. But you really want to talk to a lawyer that has expertise in that. A business lawyer, most business lawyers will have the competency for that, to allow you to license it in a way that they're not going to screw you over. And hopefully it's a big company and you can make some pretty good money and just chill on the couch or surf or whatever you want to do.
Feel free to send a message into the Q&A chat if you have one. I actually did have another question. So have you ever tried like an e-commerce fulfillment type distribution compared to a business to business setup where people will place orders on online and it goes to a fulfillment center? Do they operate similar to a distributor, or is it a little bit different?
It's different. So we have a third-party company that does our fulfillment for us. So it's a warehouse with frozen and cooled refrigerators, and they do pick pack orders for our online orders, as well as they assemble our pallets for when our distributors order. They're a really good opportunity if you can find the right one, because again, their expertise, they're experts at it. They're generally not too expensive. Like the labor charges are pretty good, and they have a lot of storage capacity. So especially if you have a product that has a long shelf life, you can just, drop off, whatever, 2 pallets of it that might last you 6 months. They're going to charge you a monthly pallet fee for storage. It's usually not that much, maybe like $20 a month. And then you can keep it all there. And then if you have online orders, then you can just set that up automated. They're going to integrate right into your Shopify and they'll ship it directly for you. And if you also have a business that allows you to ship your orders for wholesale, then they can take care of that too. There's places, this is not something I put in the slide, but it's a really good one. They're like portals. They're like Amazon for wholesale. There's ones there's called Faire, Faire. There's Mabel. And then there is a lot of the major grocery stores have one, like Kroger has one. And what it is it allows you to sell your product on wholesale to anybody that wants to. Usually, they get a discount on your first order, but it's a great opportunity to get exposure to a lot of people. So let's just say, a local grocery store wants to find cool new products to differentiate themselves from Whole Foods and Kroger. They'll go on somewhere like there, they'll get wholesale pricing, and then you can set your parameters for ordering, you can set your wholesale pricing, and they place the order. That's something also you can integrate with your your fulfillment company to ship those orders out, because a distributor is not going to, I've never seen a distributor that's going to ship online orders. So you will need a fulfillment company that is separate from the distributor who takes product to the stores.
Have you ever seen distributors work with fulfillment companies and that sort of things? Like where they pick it up from the actual fulfillment center, your product?
So our distributor does pick up from our fulfillment center, but the other way around, no, because the fulfillment centers are not taking your product to buy it. They're just storing it and shipping it. So they're not going to buy your product and sit on it to sell it. It's just not worth the risk. They're a labor and storage company.
Gotcha. So are you able to, a couple of things, are you able to briefly talk about how barcodes work and what requirements you need to be compatible with a retailer system?
Yeah, so barcodes do it the right way the first time. There's a website called GSI1. Let me see.
Yeah,
you guys can pause because you can't see all my stuff. But there's one, I think it's called GSI1. It's like the ultimate barcode system that makes sure that you have the beginning of the barcode that is your brand. So you can just go to barcode.com and get barcodes, and they might be unique barcodes, but they're just going to give you random barcodes. If you go to, I think it's gs1usa.org. I'll write that in the chat. gs1usa.org. This is a website that will allow you to create your own barcode prefix, so that the first set of the numbers are your brand and then the next are your products. It's a little bit more expensive, but do it right the first way so you never have to change your barcodes. Changing your barcodes is a process in our industry, especially if you are in major retailers, because they actually do check that. So you want to make sure that your barcodes are not going to be conflict with something they already have on the shelf. Do it right the first time and just put it behind you so you don't have to worry about it when you maybe get into Kroger and then you're like, crap, this is our barcode of, cheese and I sell, cookies or whatever.
Yeah. Now you talked about working with buyers, and I know this because I've asked you personally about this particular program. Do you recommend RangeMe? So RangeMe has been popping up recently with a lot of retailers, and I know that from experiences myself. Do do you feel it's a good tool to use?
Yes, I'm gonna turn the light on here because it's getting sunset. One second.
Gotcha.
So, Arrange Me. I love them. No, I don't. I don't like them, but they're necessary. A lot of retailers, if you go to their website, it says, want to supply to us, click here, and then it just takes you to Arrange Me. A lot of them, unless you know someone there, they don't just take meetings. So they use Arrange Me to source. I will tell you, I had the premium for a year and I got nowhere with it. It did nothing. But it is a way to apply. You should have Arrange Me. Definitely do the free one and do the submissions that you're able to do for free. Find when a retailer is doing a category review for what you have to offer and submit. There's generally a limit in terms of number, how many you can do, but they refresh regularly and not everyone is reviewing your product at one time. So you won't run out, and then you can, refresh it every 2 months or however often they give you more submissions to reapply to every time category review is being updated.
I know I spoke with you about that Arrange Me too. So have you tried the storefront ordering system? Because they included some type of new storefront, because you mentioned about selling to wholesalers on an e-commerce site. They rolled out some type of new program where you can do that from your actual profile.
I didn't see that. I would definitely be interested in trying that because it is huge. I mean, it's a massive system. Just not anything I had luck with. I know a lot of people have never had luck with it. So definitely do the free one. If you want to try the premium one, it does make your page look better. It does allow for more submissions. And it is something that some retailers claim they like seeing verification, but I didn't have any luck with it. But don't take my word for it. Try the free one, and if you have any luck and want to try it. Oh, also, like I said, negotiate. They always have promos going on, so don't pay the full price. If they ever say, "Oh, we can offer it to you," ask them, what kind of discounts do you have for first-time users? I mean, sometimes you can get it for like half.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. If anybody wants any information about GS1 or Arrange Me, feel free to contact Ziad or myself. I've worked kind of a couple of things around that. I've had a lot of questions about those type of programs. The question I had was, what kind of sourcing kind of help you what kind of sourcing recommendations do you do? I mean, obviously with inflation, with kind of the last couple of years, it's been kind of hectic with finding produce, finding fruit, finding coffee grounds, finding really any sorts of stuff. A lot of my entrepreneurs that I work with, glass was the biggest issue. I know you use plastic, but glass was the biggest issue. We've had even a business where they've used glass for so many years, and they recently switched to plastic that looked identical to their product of the glass one. But any recommendations on that? Kind of how to overcome just a high level recommendations on that?
I mean, ask your suppliers, like, how's your supply chain looking? Do you guys anticipate any shortages? If you do, buy extra if you can, or find someone else that doesn't. But it's always good to have backup suppliers because the most perfect company in the world is perfect until they're not.
Yeah, that's true.
Does anyone have questions about the food costing? That was pretty technical, but it's really important. If anyone had any questions, don't be afraid. Math's not my strong suit. I'm not a good marketer, so it's okay if that wasn't something that stuck. If it didn't, feel free to say something, and I'd be happy to clarify anything that you might have questions on.
Someone asked, and I think I touched on this again. How are you able to share your spreadsheet templates that you shared in the presentation? With that?
I mean, no, only because that isn't even anything I use. I actually just made a mod. I don't know if you guys can see the chat, but this isn't even the system that I use. I just kind of made this up for this meeting so it all fit into one slide. This is not the right one to have. The logic is correct, the math is correct, but depending on your business, you probably need something a little bit more extensive, and it's going to require like a setup and all that. I can help you guys with that, but it's really like this is not going to get you to where you need to be, because I just made this up today and it might even have some flaws in it, but like the formulas and all that. But if you want some more help on the operations, just shoot me an email and I'll see how I can help you. But this is really not going to be something that I can send so that you guys can use it, because it doesn't even work properly.
Gotcha. Any more questions? Just want to make sure we answer everybody's questions that they have. Wait 1 minute. Well, Ziad, I guess we answered everybody's question. I think we could even end early, unless I think we answered everybody's question. Before we end, I do want to mention a couple of things. One is there's going to be a survey that's going to be going out right after this webinar. Please, I highly encourage you to fill that out. It allows us to kind of improve our programming with SIFT and kind of understand what your challenges are as a small business. Also, if you want any information about the kitchen, feel free to reach out, or any of the kind of the things that Ziad discussed today. Please reach out to us. There is going to be also, the recording will be sent to you guys right after this in the next couple of days. And then lastly, I do want to mention, coming soon in 2023, fall 2023, we do have the SIFT Food Entrepreneur Cohort that kind of go more in detail of some of the stuff that Mr. Burkett was talking about, as well as other stuff like marketing and business planning, legally stuff, and with food safety. I highly encourage everybody to keep a lookout on our website for that particular event. And with that, Ziad, appreciate with everything that you discussed today and taking the time to speak with us today. I guess we can end it if that's okay with you.
Yeah, thank you for your opportunity, Kareem. Thank you everyone for your time. I'm glad 17 of the 22 people stuck around for the end. That's my email right there. If anybody would just like some help with anything, if you just need something answered or some advice, feel free to reach out. If you'd like some more extensive services for your businesses, I do help a couple businesses, on the operations and the sales side. And this was cool. Thanks everyone. Appreciate you listening.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, and happy holidays to everybody. Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah.